Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway, and in this episode, I will be doing coverage of Legacy on Ice, which happened earlier today in Washington, D.C., as a tribute to the victims of Flight 5342. This was overall a beautifully well done event. I don't think we've seen a skating show to this quality and who knows when. I don't want to say maybe ever, because there certainly were some very well produced skating events back in the 80s and 90s. And oftentimes we have recency bias, but it certainly is up there with some of the best skating events that I have seen in my life. It was a packed house in DC. Jackie Wong reported the day before that it was almost at a sellout. I don't know if it made it to a complete sellout or not. It certainly looked like there weren't a whole lot of empty seats in there in that arena, which I think was a great opportunity for several of the skaters that were able to skate in front of that big of a crowd. They started the event with an artist I was not familiar with named Hayes Warner, and she sung a rendition of Hallelujah, which I have to say, just really much top to bottom, the music choices for the skaters to skate to were really just on point. And starting out the event with Hallelujah, it was like you're already like the eyes are watering if you're not in full tears. It's just very, very appropriate. The event was mostly hosted by Christy Yamaguchi and Brian Boitano. We did have a few other people come in to introduce skaters or do tributes along the way, but mostly it was Christy and Brian. So it started off with Amber Glenn. She skated to Rise Up by Audra Day, which is, again, just perfectly beautiful music and appropriate. The next skater was Johnny Weir, who we have not seen in such a long time on the ice. Like, I think the last time that I can recall see him was in Spinning Out, where he was one of the characters that was pair skating in that movie. He was skating to Memory, which is from the Cat soundtrack, which is, again, beautiful music. It was so nice to see Johnny back on the ice. The next skater was Sophia, and she was representing the Washington Figure Skating Club. She skated to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Beautiful expression. She even did some nice triples in there. She's someone who skates at this club, lost some friends for sure, and just, I thought, had such a great presence on the ice. Really enjoyed her. Then the Washington Figure Skating Club did a tribute for their coach, Ina Velenskaya, and it was to You'll Be in My Heart by Phil Collins. So everyone that skated brought a white rose and set it on a memorial before they skated. All of these skaters here were all very young. I won't guess ages, but I'm guessing every single one of them was probably 12 years old or less that skated in this. Again, just really composed with the white roses, really, really beautiful. Then we had Emily Brody and Ian Somerville skating to Never Enough. It was basically bits and pieces of their free program that they've used for the last couple of seasons, but really, really gorgeous. It was kind of nice, honestly, to sort of see some of the skaters here without the pressure of being judged. And you could sort of see a freeness with some of the skaters. You could also see a heaviness as well with some of them. It was very emotional at times for a lot of the different skaters that skated. But I just thought that this was a beautiful performance by Emily and Ian. And then came Jason Brown. And as soon as the beat of the music for Impossible Dream came up, I just completely lost it. It was only a matter of time before I cried. I'm somebody who cries at the drop of a hat anyway. And the Impossible Dream, I'm pretty sure the first time I ever saw Jason skate it, I cried without all of the context of what this event was for, right? But this is just literally one of my favorite men's programs of all time. It was number one on my season's best list a couple of seasons ago. I love it so much. It was perfect for this event. and he is just perfection on ice. And it was hard for me to even watch the whole thing because I was crying the whole time. But it was so beautiful. It was so good to see Jason doing what he does best, which is show skating. He does so well. And I believe that this piece actually started as a showpiece before it became a competitive piece for him. And we had Kitty and Peter Carruthers come out, and they came out to basically just introduce Scott Hamilton. Kitty looked amazing. Peter, if you were not a skating fan in the 90s, early 2000s, you may not be as familiar with Peter Carruthers. So these two, brother and sister pair team, won an Olympic silver medal for pairs in 1984, which obviously no American pair team has reached the heights of since then, right? We've had a bronze medalist that occurred in 1988, but it's been a drought in terms of pair skating for Americans at the Olympics. And so Kitty and Peter Carruthers are kind of legends in that. But Peter used to commentate for ABC with Dick Button and Peggy Fleming. He always did all the pairs event, but oftentimes during ESPN's coverage, he would cover sometimes even the singles. They wouldn't oftentimes bring out Dick Button and Peggy Fleming until like a big competition like Nationals and Worlds, and you'd often get Peter for a lot of the events. He was such a really, really good commentator. I really enjoyed his voice. So it was great to see him out there again, even though it was clear it's been a while since he's probably been in front of a mic, but it was so good to see him. And they introduced Scott Hamilton, which I thought when they came out and introduced him, I was like, oh, is Scott going to skate? Because Scott doesn't skate anymore. Like, I've been to the last two Scott Hamilton Cares events in Nashville because I live outside of Nashville here in Tennessee. And he'll basically do what Christy and Brian are doing this event. He'll MC his own event. You know, he might go skate in the middle of the ring and lay down and let Keegan Messing do a black flip over him or something like that. But he doesn't skate anymore. And so I thought they were introducing him to skate because it was weird to introduce somebody that was just going to be a presenter. And then it turns out that Scott came there to do a prayer. Now, I am a practicing Christian. Prayer does not bother me. But everything that happened at this show, this was by far and away the most controversial thing that I could see on Reddit, especially, that a lot of people really did not care for this. And I think that it's safe to say that when NBC re-airs this, that this probably will be cut out completely, I would imagine, because Scott was on later in the show. And so they could still show Scott without showing this. So I definitely can understand where some people were frustrated by this and felt like it was sort of forced upon them. I probably would have prayed a different prayer personally than what he prayed, but it didn't bother me. And I think if it did bother you, just know that I understand completely. Your views are 100% understandable, but do realize that for some people that did provide them with some comfort in this situation. After that, they had a group number to Imagine, which people said was kind of ironic that you just had a prayer and then the first lyric of Imagine is Imagine There's No Heaven. But this number had Nathan Chen, Efimova Mitrofanoff, Jeremy Abbott, Camden Polkinen, Jimmy Ma, Carrera Ponmarenko, Alyssa Liu, Madison Chalk and Evan Bates, Amber Glenn, Ashley Kane, Jason Brown, Andrew Torgashev, Molly Chesnick, and Yegorhoff, Isabel Levito, Ilya Kulik. So I hope I got everybody. I was trying to make sure I got everybody was in there. I did not recognize Ilya Kulik at all until he skated later. And it also took me a minute to recognize Molly because when her and Yegor skated for Beta, she had longer brown hair and here it's shorter and blonde. I'm so glad to see them still skating. I know they don't compete anymore, and she's now gotten into like drama and acting and things like that. I think it's the University of Michigan where she goes, but it was really beautiful to see them on the ice, even if it was just in a group number. And after that, they had a moment of silence, which was, super appropriate. And then we had Peggy Fleming come out, and she introduced Isabella Aparicio. So I will say they did a really, really good job of mentioning different skaters that perished in the crash. And so they would be like, okay, this skater is skating for these victims, what have you. I was unable to get every single one of those. And so it's impossible for me to be able to get all of them. And so in this case, it was very obvious because in Isabella's case, she lost her brother and her father in the plane crash, which is heartbreaking. And here she was skating and so brave. And on top of that, she was skating to a recording of her father playing this particular piece of music that she was skating to. So it was obviously very, very emotional for her. And so obviously in her case, she was skating in honor of her brother and her dad. And I'm sorry that I don't have who every single person was skating for. I wasn't able to get all of that down. But it was very emotional at the end. It's heartbreaking to watch other people cry. It just is. But just so brave of her to do that. Sarah Everhart was skating for the Skating Club of Boston. She was skating to I'll Take Care of You by Beth Hart. Then we had Richard Dwyer come out, who the skating lesson put up a video of him just a couple of days ago of him skating at 90 years old, which is amazing. I was not familiar with Richard Dwyer. I had to look him up, and apparently he skated in a skating show called the Ice Follies for like 30 years, from 1950 to 1980. He's a Hall of Famer for U.S. figure skating, and it was great for him to come out. And he and Brian Boitano introduced Ilya Kulik, which I saw a lot of people both on Twitter and on Reddit have no idea who Ilya Kulik was. So Ilya Kulik was the coach of Olivia Tour. And so he was skating in her honor. He skated to Nella Fantasia. And Ilya is the 1998 Olympic champion. He was a beautiful skater. He was very inconsistent in the planets aligned for him at the Olympics. But before then, he was almost kind of like Mikhail Collada. Fantastic artistry. Jumps are not always there. And it really was expected that he would really be peaking by the time Salt Lake City came, but he opted to turn professional, which at the time, it was really the height of professional skating here in the States. A lot of Russian skaters moved to America to pursue lots of opportunities that were there, which seems really ironic now based upon how skating popularity has really plummeted in the US and really increased over in Russia. But at the time, it was very much a different story. And so he had quite the career skating in shows. He could do just about anything. Obviously met Katya Gordieva, and they were married and have a daughter together that he also coached for a long period of time. So I wasn't really aware he was even still coaching, and he was out there doing double jumps. According to Jackie, he was doing triples in practices, but decided that with a low light, he was not going to go out there and try to attempt triples. And he was also, fun fact, in Center Stage, which is one of my favorite movies. It's not like an Oscar movie or anything like that. It's just literally a movie about ballet dancers, and he has a decently prominent role in that. And so it's a fun watch if you've never seen it before. I think that came out in like 2000, I think. And has probably more of a cult following among some of us that grew up dancing. And then after Ilya Kulik, we had Katie McBeath and Daniel Parkman. They were skating to Caruso, very similar to the music that they used this year in their free skate, and they were in their same free skate outfits. And, it's always great to have pair skaters in any show because the crowd always oohs and ahs at the twist and the throws. And so it was great for them to be here. After them, we had Johnny Weir come out and talk about Capital on Ice. And so they had, for Olivia and Everly, the Washington Figure Skating Club, representing that, something called Capitol Theater on Ice. They were doing selections from the Four Seasons. Looked, from what we could see, pretty cool. I will say, in general, it's very difficult at times to translate those kind of performances onto TV. It shows much better in person. It's like if you've ever tried to watch like Disney on Ice on TV. Like there's so many different skaters on the ice. It's kind of hard to get understanding what's going on unless they just show you like a wide shot or an overhead shot the whole time. But still, it was very cool to have them there. Then we had Jeremy Abbott. He skated to a piece of music called Evergreen. And then after that, we had Nancy Kerrigan and Paul Wiley come out, and they are just, oh gosh, they too represent 90s skating so well. Paul Wiley winning the silver medal, surprisingly so, at the 92 Olympics, which is the first Olympics that I ever saw. And then Nancy won a medal at that Olympics. She won her bronze medal. And then, of course, she won the silver medal famously 2 years later with the whole drama with her and Tanya Harding. But they were good friends at the time. I think they did some like pair skating type of things and shows at times because I think Nancy used to be a pair skater. But if you want to watch some old like 90s show skating, you can look up Paul Wiley and Nancy Kerrigan, and they did some numbers together back in the day that were really, really beautiful. And oh my gosh, Paul Wiley was like the original Jason Brown, Matt Savoy, such a beautiful skater, and he really blossomed in professional skating. Like he had a Carmina Burana routine I remember that I really loved. He had an Apollo 13 program that I really loved. He was just really fantastic. And really, him and Scott Hamilton, I think, really carried a lot of men's professional skating. Boitano also to an extent for a number of years. And so it was great to see those two together. They were representing the Skating Club of Boston. And they talked about the loss of Spencer Lane and Shishkova and Naumov. And so we had here just a whole segment that was just a lot. It was a lot. So first we had Jimmy Ma skating to One Day I'll Fly Away. Then we had Efimova and Mitrofanov come out. Her dress was just gorgeous. They were skating to Papa Can You Hear Me? You could see excerpts from their free dance in there. And then you had Max come out. And he was skating to a song that his parents used to dance to. It was a Russian song. I could not get the name of it. I like Shazammed it and it came up in Russian. The artist was Igor Korneliuk, is the best that I could pronounce it. I was just sobbing, absolutely sobbing. And I knew I would, pretty much as soon as he came out there. I don't know how he got through it. And he, definitely let go and cried on the ice. And I thought that was going to be kind of the end. He got a standing ovation. It was beautiful. And then Jimmy and Efimova and Mitrofanov come back out. And they do a number with Max to Ave Maria. And they bring him a candle. And he holds it up. And at this point, I'm just ugly crying at this point. I would love to go. In fact, I need to just go back and watch some of these performances and just appreciate them sort of that second time through when I'm not just sobbing. But it was so, so beautiful. So beautiful. And I mentioned in my Forgotten recap that Jimmy and Efimova and Mitrofanov had the pictures of those victims from the Skating Club of Boston at Jimmy's medal ceremony. It was really beautiful. So then after that, we had Camden Polkinen. He skated to a piece of music called November. And then we had a kind of a weird thing. It was almost like a light show to The Matrix. I did get the name of that group, but I cannot find it. I'm sorry. But it was like lights on ice, like pyro. It's very cool. It just, we didn't get an introduction, so we didn't know who they were or what exactly it was for. But then they did a tribute to the first responders that responded to the crash site, which was a great tribute for them. And I hear from people that went to the event that that particular segment was really cool to look at and kind of a nice relief from all of the grief and the very emotional skates that were there. After that, time that they took to acknowledge the first responders, which they got a standing ovation, is very, very long. Alyssa Liu came out and skated to Hero by Mariah Carey, which is a 90s, huge song in the 90s. My daughter's like, the only Mariah Carey song I know is All I Want for Christmas. I'm like, of course. She has lots of amazing music, and this one was perfect for this event. Andrew Torgashev came out and did his short program. that he's in the last couple of years, that he brings so much emotion to it. Larimfer. And then Michael Weiss came out with his daughter, Annie Mae. He is a 2-time world bronze medalist, 3-time national champ. He was at the Olympics twice. Again, for people who are not familiar with him, he had a really big rivalry with Todd Eldredge back in the 90s. He was always chasing a quad jump, usually a quad lutz, and he would always 2-foot it. I don't think he ever landed a clean quad in his entire career, but he had a really long career, and he was a really, really good skater for the U.S. And he came out and introduced Yebin Mock, who was a skater also in the 90s, wasn't as popular as Michelle Kwan or Nicole Bobak or the others. I don't think she ever made it on to even a pewter medal. She was close. I know she was in the top 5 or top 6 a couple of times. She was coached by Frank Carroll. She's been pretty active in the skating community, and she was one of the coaches at the development camp that these skaters were coming from. And so they showed footage of the skaters skating to Halo, which is how they ended the camp. And so Yebin was there with basically the members who were in the group number. So like Camden, Nathan, those skaters were out there in Team USA jackets skating to Halo with Yebin Mock. And there was something that they said in that piece that I made sure to write down. So the National Development Team will forever have 151 members in their hearts. We will keep gliding for you. And after the skaters who were wearing those team jackets left, they left on the ice Yebin Mock along with Gracie Gold and Ashley Kane, who were also teaching those students at the development camp. And they did a little piece and then a group hug with the 3 of them at the end. Ashley looked the most on the verge of tears the entire time. Then we had Christina Carrera and Anthony Ponomarenko. They were skating to Chris Stapleton's Cold. Then we had Isabel Levito, and she was doing her short program to Moon River, complete with a triple combination. I'm like, girlfriend, why are we doing triples out here? It's an exhibition. And then Nathan Chen came out to introduce Maddie and Evan, which I was bummed we weren't going to get like a full Nathan Chen routine, but at least he was on the ice, and I appreciated him being there. Maddie and Evan were skating to their exhibition number that they started doing last year with this long white sheet. It's to a piece of music called Once I Was Loved, My Melody Gardot. And they fell in the middle of their rotational lift at the end with the sheet. It's just like this beautiful, and people are like commenting on Twitter, on Reddit, like, oh, I can't believe they've never fallen, and poof, they fell. But they got right back up, and it was, it's an exhibition. It was no big deal. But I'm thinking, oh my gosh, please don't get hurt while you're here, right? And then the closer of the show was Ilya Molina, and he was skating to another piece from NF, which is clearly one of his favorite artists. He even had a hoodie from their tour over from last year, I'm guessing it was, and was skating to a piece of music called Hope. So some people, this was not their cup of tea. They thought it should have ended with somebody like Max, some kind of more of a softer number than the rap piece that Ilya used, but he brought a lot of emotion into it, for sure, more so than we typically see out of him, even though I feel like NF songs bring the best out of Ilya. But the crowd loved him. He got a standing ovation. Of course, they loved the backflip. That's the only one that they saw. That and the one that he did later in the final bows. And again, reports from people who went were that the crowd absolutely went berserk for Ilya, as they should. I mean, he's the biggest rock star that we've got in skating right now, for sure. Then they came out with their final bows. They came out to Hold My Hand by Lady Gaga, which is, when every time I hear this song, I think about Plazas and Fernandez, because they used this piece of music last year. It's from the Top Gun soundtrack. And it also made me go, oh, I wish they had been here. They would be such great show skaters. I hope they're healing well from their injury. And mostly it was final bows. We did get a lift from Maddie and Evan, one of the stationary lifts that they do in their free dance. We got a spread eagle from both Ilya and Max together. We got a backflip from Ilya, and we had a Billman from Amber. And all of the skaters formed a heart, and then Amber put the bouquet of white roses in the center. And that's how they ended the show. And the final bows also included Nancy and Paul and the whole cast that was there. And it was a beautiful event, an absolutely beautiful event. And while I was trying to figure out who it was that did the light show that I was able to find, I did find somebody just recently posted on Reddit. The name of the song is The City That Doesn't Exist. And I'm going to read what this person put on Reddit. This person is creedthoughts.gov is their username. The meaning behind the program, The City That Doesn't Exist. The hauntingly beautiful ballad is more than just a melody. It is a longing, a dream, a deep and aching nostalgia for something lost yet eternally present in the heart. The lyrics paint a picture of an ethereal city, one that exists beyond time and space. Ethereal is the word I'm looking for, ethereal city. A place of dreams, memories, and souls forever entwined. The song captures the essence of yearning for a home that no longer exists, for love that transcends the physical world, and for a past that lingers like a bittersweet echo. This song is deeply connected to St. Petersburg, Russia, the city where Yevgenia and Vadim were born and raised and fell in love. It is a city where they first took to the ice, where they dreamed together, and where their journey as partners, both in sport and in life, began. They would sing and dance to it with family and friends, celebrating the beauty of their shared past. For Maxim, it is a sacred tribute as he resurrects the memories of his parents, embodying their love story, their passion, and their legacy. It is a reunion, a son calling out to his parents through art, through history, through music. It is a dance not just for them, but with them in a city that may no longer exist in the same way, but will forever remain alive in his heart. It's really, really beautiful. Then they've got the lyrics from the song as well. So that was the show. It was a little over 2 hours. It is up on Peacock as a replay for, it says you have 2 days to watch. So if you missed the show and you have Peacock, you can watch it. It was also streamed on YouTube, and I have that on both my Blue Sky and Twitter accounts. So it was obviously geo-blocked in the US. So if you're outside of the US, you can watch it no problem. If you're inside the US and you don't have Peacock, you could use a VPN and be able to watch the show. Otherwise, it will be on NBC on March the 30th, which is 28 days from now. I don't know why such a long time between then and now. And that will obviously be during Worlds that airs. So, interesting. Perhaps it's appropriate for then. It just feels like such a long time. And obviously it will be edited down a little bit as well. But I would love to hear some of your thoughts and some of your favorite moments from the event. You can find me on all the socials at IceGate Podcast. You can send me a line at thecuttingedgepod@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to Podcatcher, subscribe on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram or on any other socials. Most active on Twitter and Blue Sky for sure. I appreciate you guys so much for listening, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks with some previews for the World Figure Skating Championships.